Welcome to What to Do When, a podcast for when you're feeling a little lost, low, or lonely in life. This is a space for honest conversations about just how damn terrifying, messy, and confusing life can be. Figuring out who you are, healing your wounds, finding the right partner, building an amazing career, it's a lot. We're going to open up, unpack, and normalize all the big, complicated emotions and struggles in life. The anxiety, the self-doubt, the overwhelm, and the other spirals it's so easy to fall into. Because I find that the more that we open up and get real, the more we can learn, and the less pressure that we feel to have it all figured out and to be perfect all of the time. And this is the sweet spot where healing happens. So let's get into it. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of What to Do When. Very excited to have you here. And we're on a bit of a roll with podcast episodes at the moment, and I feel like they're just getting better every week, and I'm loving your feedback. I'm loving having you here along for this ride. So thanks for being here, and I hope that today is another juicy one for you to take some things away from. So today I'm actually really excited to go through this because we all like a map, right? We all like a map. We all like to understand things, and we all like to understand where we want to go. So today I'm going to walk you through something that I believe every single one of you deserves to really know and understand, and that is the 5 stages of emotional growth. So this is the exact process that I guide my clients through inside of my one-to-one program, Heal, and it's the process that I witness people going through. I've witnessed them go through this for the last 5 years. Every single client I've worked with and myself, I move through this process over and over and over again. If you have ever thought, I know why I feel like this, but I just don't know what to do with it, or I'm so self-aware, but I'm still stuck, or if you've gotten really frustrated with yourself, which I have recently, or you've gone, oh my God, I thought I was past this already, or if you're simply just afraid of your feelings and emotions and have no freaking clue how to even start, this episode is for you. So we're going to be looking at emotional growth, not as something sort of abstract or fluffy, but as something that is very, very deeply human, very, very practical in a sense, but also embodied and takes a lot of practice. So I'm going to walk you through real life examples using anxiety and anger so you can see what this actually looks like in everyday life. So this is the 5 stages of emotional growth. This is the exact process I believe that people go through when it comes to healing and becoming an emotionally aware, capable person. So let's dive in. The big picture. Let's start with these 5 stages that I've witnessed each client move through. So let's recap them briefly. Stage 1 that most people either enter a program from or are chatting to me from and know they want to change is emotional avoidance. So this is stage 1, and this is where most people start. You avoid feeling not because you're weak, but because emotions have never felt safe to you. So you tend to keep yourself really busy, you tend to overthink, you probably struggle with anxiety, you also numb out, you might people please, you might be a perfectionist, and this can look like you staying in motion constantly, so always having things playing in the background, always working, bringing your work home with you, always being really heavily involved in other people's lives rather than on your own. It can look like you reaching for your phone, for food, or for another task. And it can look like you disconnecting from your body because what it holds feels overwhelming to you. The second stage, and again, we're going to dig in deeper soon, but stage 2 that people move from, so they move from avoidance and they celebrate and they move to then talking about your feelings. So this stage is where you start to name emotions and recognize patterns, which is a big, big, big step, but you are mostly still inside of your head. So you might say things like, I know this is just my anxious attachment style, or I know that I'm just triggered right now, but it stops after you've analyzed things, and you still feel the need to explain your feelings, to justify them, instead of letting them essentially have a life of their own and feel them and accept them as they are. Stage 3, you're moving now from talking about your feelings, and then they move to feeling their feelings. This is where everything starts to shift. You start tuning into your body. You start to notice the tightness in your chest, the churning stomach, the heat in your body or on your face. And you learn to stay with the sensation of your feelings and emotions in your body rather than escaping from it, rather than numbing it. And this stage is all about building emotional capacity. So building your ability to hold and be with discomfort, be with big emotions without spiraling, without getting overwhelmed, without freaking the fuck out. Then from here, you start to move even further into stage 4, which I'm calling emotional dialogue or parts work. So you begin to realize that these emotions are different parts of you. These are often younger protective parts, that they're not irrational, they're trying to keep you safe. This is the stage where you start to stop shaming your anxiety or pushing down your anger or your overwhelm or your sadness, and you start to listen to these emotions. You start to get curious. You start to respond to them like you would with a scared child, with compassion and with boundaries. Then finally, stage 5 is about moving into integration and change. And this is when it really, really, really starts to show up in your actual life. So you stop spiraling after a conflict, you start speaking up instead of shrinking or hiding away. You set boundaries and you feel your emotions fully, and you let your emotions guide you into action. You stop being at war with your feelings and you start using them as messengers, as means of connecting to your intuition. Okay, so that's a quick recap. And now I want to dive into some examples of what these stages look like with real emotions. And I'm going to use anxiety, and then I'm also going to go into using the example of anger as well. So let's walk through these 5 stages and how they show up through the lens of anxiety. And if you're someone that struggles with anxiety, it will be really cool for you to think about, where am I at in these stages of emotional growth and healing? And what am I working towards? What's my next step? So stage 1, emotional avoidance. So with anxiety, this looks like I keep myself busy constantly so I don't have to feel how anxious I am. You overwork, you plan every detail, you micromanage. Being still or calm feels very unsafe. Meditation sounds like a nightmare to you. Then you might start shifting. When you start doing the work, you start shifting into stage 2, talking about your anxiety. So you might say things like, I know exactly why I'm anxious. And this right here is a bit of a high. When you finally start figuring things out, you end up analyzing every single trigger. You can name the origin stories of your anxiety, where it stems from, why it's happening. But, and it's a big but, you still spiral from time to time. So you understand why you're anxious, but you still don't know how to be with it. From here, we want to move through to stage 3 of feeling anxiety in the body. This is about building capacity, remember? So you start to notice, what physical sensations do I feel when I'm anxious? How can I stop letting my mind take over and start feeling and processing in my body first? You start noticing a tightness in your chest, a clenched or heightened or tensed shoulders. You start to notice your stomach starting to get nervous, and you ride this wave of sensation and you build your capacity for being with those sensations in your body. You spend more and more time being able to notice these sensations. Then from here, you're moving through to emotional dialogue, stage 4 with your anxiety. This sounds like you dialoguing with that part of you that's anxious. You're really getting to know it and separating it from yourself. So this might sound like you realizing and speaking to your anxiety and realizing that there's a part of you that's scanning for danger. You realize that this anxiety is trying to protect you. You stop seeing it as a flaw and you start offering it reassurance and what it needs. You start showing up, and this is what reparenting is. You start being able to reparent the younger parts of yourself that are anxious, and you start really doing the deep work with them. Then from there, you're moving on to stage 5, which is anxiety as a messenger. Now, this is a hot debated topic because often our emotions do and can be very, very, very linked to our intuition. However, we've disconnected a lot from that. We also get really triggered based on our past. But anxiety is one of those things that if you speak to people about a moment when they feel anxious and they look back on it in their life, sometimes they'll say to you, I should have listened to my gut. And it can be a very confusing experience if you're someone that struggles with anxiety to know, what is my intuition trying to tell me, or what is my anxious parts just communicating, right? What is my anxiety and what is my intuition? So stage 5 is really about learning to distinguish this if you struggle with anxiety, seeing anxiety as a messenger and knowing how to decipher that. After the waves pass, so remember, and if you would like more info, if you're a real learner, a real knowledge person, please, I'll put the link in the show notes, but please sign up for the emotions masterclass, the emotional processing masterclass, because it walks you through the order and how to do all of this in terms of how do you actually feel your feelings and emotions. Because really important part here, so stage 5, yes, is always there is a message within your emotions. However, we cannot discover or decipher that message until the emotional wave has passed. And if you want to understand the science of that, definitely please go and watch that emotional processing masterclass. I'll put the link in my show notes. So stage 5 is about after that wave of anxiety passes, you have the ability to start asking, what was this anxiety trying to show me? Perhaps it's saying, you're overcommitted, you're abandoning your needs, you're not being honest with yourself. And now instead of trying to fix this anxiety, you are actually starting to listen to what set it off in the first place, seeing if there's anything that you need to change or pay attention to, any action that you need to take. And this really hits home on the point, we're going to see this again with anger in the next example, but it really hits home the point that emotional suppression and people who suppress their emotion struggle with procrastination. They struggle with taking action because think about it. Think about all of the moments in your life that you have had to be courageous, brave, bold, take action, do something difficult. All of those moments, if you look at them, they were spurred on by emotions. Our emotions are so freaking important. And if you are someone who's stuck in stage 1 of emotional avoidance, of sweeping all your emotions under the rug, of distracting yourself, of numbing out, you are going to be someone that really, really feels challenged when it comes to actually making change, when it comes to doing something different that requires you to have, you need to have skin in the game essentially. And you're going to see this even more with my example of anger. So let's talk about anger, which again is another emotion that so many people are conditioned to avoid anger because of the stories that we have around it. Anger is one of the most fucking important emotions in the spectrum of emotions. It is so effing important. Let's look at the stages and you'll understand why. So stage 1 would look like, again, which is avoiding emotions. You would avoid your anger. And this, I'm going to call you out here, it sounds like I people please to avoid conflict, even though I'm actually hurt. You shut down, you pretend everything is fine, and you bury the resentment, right? So this is where we see this emotional sweeping starting to happen. Then, if you're lucky and you start doing the work, you start shifting into stage 2 and talking about it. And this with anger usually sounds like venting. So I vent to my partner or my friend, but I never say it to the person that it's actually about. You intellectualize your anger, you rant, but you're still not expressing or releasing the feeling. You are finding ways to let the steam out, and you're looking for justification. You're looking for validation from others instead of really, really being on board and understanding it yourself. When you dig in even further to your inner work, you'll move through to stage 3, which is feeling anger in the body. This is where you might start to notice my throat begins to tighten, my chest feels hot, there's a red ball of fire in my belly, and you'll begin to notice where anger starts to land and how it physically feels. And you'll be able to stay with that sensation of anger instead of snapping or instead of suppressing. And this is really important because I actually know a lot of people pleasers struggle with snapping at people that they're really close to, which is really funny because it goes opposite to all of the people pleaser traits that you might have. But what happens is when you get really comfortable around someone, it could be your partner, could be a parent, could be a sister, it could be a friend, it could be a flatmate. when you get really comfortable around them, you begin to almost project your anger out onto them through snapping. And it's a really interesting process. It's like you've shoved all of this anger inside your body and you can only let it out into these safe people that you know aren't going to respond badly, right? Like I do this with my mum. My mum is my person that I am safest to express emotion to. And honestly, I get so annoyed with her about the littlest things that don't even matter. And that's my cue and my signal to know that I need to start really looking into what emotions I'm feeling in my body and starting to move through and process them in a healthier way. Then next part of the work, moving through to stage 4. So after you've felt anger in your body and you've gotten really good at that, you're going to start to dialogue with that angry part of you. So it sounds like this part of me is angry because I felt dismissed, because I felt disrespected or abandoned. And what's really interesting about the emotion of anger and why I wanted to use it as an example is because often anger is a bit of a shield, and beneath it might be usually the emotion of sadness, disappointment, or shame. And so when you start to dialogue with these parts of yourself, you learn to meet the root emotion, not just the emotional reaction that you're having in the moment. And this is a really interesting place to be. This is my favorite part of Heal and my one-to-one coaching is people discovering, like, there's this magic fucking moment where people discover beneath their sadness or beneath the people pleasing is actually this like fountain of anger. And it's been simmering away for years, and they haven't realized that this simmering of anger just in the background has been driving them effing insane and has been, coming out in so many different ways. And until you learn to emotionally dialogue with these different parts of you that are usually rooted in your past and your experiences and that breakup from 5 years ago that you never really got over, or that thing that your friends said that you actually really hurt you, but you never addressed it in the moment because you're afraid of the conflict or the confrontation. It's really interesting to see what we hold, and it's incredibly freeing. And this is how you become secure. This is how you become more confident, more worthy of love within yourself. This is how you start practicing self-respect. This is how you start not abandoning yourself. And then when you really dig in, and this is a really cool moment as well with anger, you go to stage 5 where you start to see anger as a messenger for boundaries. When that wave of anger passes, and remember, we never set boundaries in the wave of the emotion. We only do this work after that wave has passed, okay? When the wave passes, you start to reflect. You start to reflect on what was that anger showing me? Was a boundary crossed? Do I need to speak up? Is something not okay with me? Anger becomes a tool instead of a threat. And it's one of the coolest experiences to be able to literally have a red flag being waved within yourself to go, oh, the way this person is treating me or the way this situation is, that's not okay with me. I'm angry about this. And then to be able to really sink in and discover and trust that and figure out, okay, what actions do I need to take from here? What boundaries do I need to set at work? Or what conversations do I need to have with my partner? Or how can I explain or get this point across to someone that how they're acting or how the situation has ended up, it doesn't feel good for me anymore, and I need to do something about it. And this is what I'm saying, is that when you live a life of avoiding emotions and fearing your emotions or distracting yourself from your emotions, you will find it really, really hard to be bold, brave, courageous, and take action. You will find it really hard to leave a relationship that isn't serving you, because you need that message, you need that fuel, that understanding, you need that thing inside of you to communicate to you in a feeling, in a big way, that you don't want to be in this relationship anymore. You're settling. It's also how I think back to the first time that I moved overseas. And that decision, the reason I was able to do it, it was a freaking big, scary decision. I had finally gotten, the perfect corporate job, and I was meant to be really digging in and starting my career. And I effing hated it. I hated it. I hated my life. I was so unhappy, and I was drinking, partying, eating, and I was just distracting myself from every emotion that I had until I had these moments where I was at work and I was literally writing ads for the Yellow Pages. I was writing ads for the Yellow Pages, and I remember just this big, huge wave of sadness and disappointment and just fear, essentially, of what the heck am I doing? And I remember after these moments when that wave had passed, I was talking to my mum and I was saying, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. And she supported me in discovering, girl, you hate your job. You're not happy. You need to do something. You need to live. And that moment led me to deciding that I was going to quit that job and I was going to move to Canada and go and work at a camp for a couple of years. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made in my whole life because it got me out of my comfort zone. But it also was something that honestly was just hard. It was a hard decision to make. It was a hard thing to get that far out my comfort zone, to move to a whole new country, to go and live this dream that I'd had. And I needed that emotion. I needed to see what was truly going on. I needed to viscerally feel how important this was to me and how much I was really, really hating that job. And this is why your emotions are so freaking important. This is why I want you to go on this journey and why I will never shut up about how important emotions are and how important it is to be able to work through these 5 stages, to learn to be an emotionally aware and capable person so that you can know yourself, so that you can love yourself, so that you can respect yourself, to walk away from things that aren't right for you, to walk towards things that you really want and really desire. So wherever you are on this journey of emotional growth, I hope that you resonated with one of those steps because now you know what's next. And I want to remind you that you are not behind. You are not behind at all. These stages also aren't going to be linear. I wish they were, but the truth is that everyone moves through them very differently. They're also not a checklist. That list is simply, it's a map so that you can locate where you're at. You can locate yourself. You can meet yourself in a new way and you can keep moving forward. You can keep going and saying and thinking to yourself, okay, this is what I want to be moving to next. Inside of Heal, and I'm doing a shameless plug for this program because this is exactly where these 5 stages have come from. Inside of Heal, we walk this path together, this exact path, not just in theory, but in your body, in your habits, in your behaviors, in your relationships. If this episode has just deeply resonated with you and you want some support and accountability to move from understanding your emotions to instead living differently because of them, please either DM me on Instagram the word heal, or you can book your introductory call via the link in the show notes. And so this call is a free 30-minute connection call. It is a call where we just get to know each other first. I'll ask you some questions to determine if this program is a good fit for you, and I'll give you a real overview of what this experience is like and who it's for. It is your chance to ask your questions, and after that, I actually ask you to go away and I ask you to have a really good think about it. And this is to make sure that this is a really good fit for you. So there are no expectations on this call. It's purely a call to see if this is something that you want to explore and to give you the information to make an informed decision about your future and about the support that you want to seek. Okay, I'm going to put all those links in the show notes, as well as the link to the Emotional Processing Masterclass, which is actually the first module inside of Heal. So if you're thinking about joining Heal, start that masterclass. It's a big hunky one, but it's stunning. It's incredible, and there is so much knowledge inside of this. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it and got a lot from it, and I can't wait to see you guys next week. Have an amazing week. Remember, you're doing enough, you're being enough, you're not falling behind, you're exactly where you're meant to be. and you're not alone in this.